This week we take you to the 2018 Agro Expo.
There's probably 25 different things that we could list off that affects how we need to apply downforce any given second. Speed's a big part of that, obviously, right? As we go over 5 miles an hour, we really have a big need to better control that downforce.
In Michigan Agricultural Commodities, Betz will join us with a market update. I'm Janelle Brose, and this is Farm News 5.
Farm News 5 is brought to you by Ford.
The 2018 Agro Expo featured a new demonstration this year. Planter demonstrations were held on Tuesday and Wednesday, and here to talk with us about those demonstrations is Precision Planting's Region Manager Jason Koning. Jason, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Tell us, what's the latest in planter technology?
Well, when we talk about planter technology and the equipment that we're retrofitting onto an existing planter, most of the equipment that we have behind us on this 1770 is 5 to 6 years old at the most. So when we talk about downforce management with Delta Force, when we look at residue management with Clean Sweep, from singulation and meter management with the VSET, drive, looking at the drive and how stable it is with the electric drive called V-Drive, from speed tube that's on this planter to manage spacing, especially when we start to increase speeds. The one thing that's on this planter that is probably the newest is Smart Firmer. So Smart Firmer is going to do 4 things. So really Smart Firmer is going to be able to tell us, number 1, what our furrow moisture is. So are we planting into moisture? Number 2, it's going to be able to tell us what temperature we're planting into. So we have a record then that we can actually go back and look at that. It's also going to tell us what our furrow residue content is, because residue, temperature, and moisture are all going to affect and have the potential to affect, as well as other things on the planter, how uniform our emergence is. Number 4, we're also looking at organic matter. So how much variability do we have across that field and the farm with organic matter?
How does utilizing this new technology impact a farmer's bottom line?
We're really always looking at ROI. So if we focus, let's say, just on emergence with Smart Firmer, if we're measuring, do we have every seed planted into moisture? Every seed planted into moisture is going to give us uniform emergence. If we have uniform emergence, then we're able to maximize the same size ear in every crop and really maximize yield on every plant.
Jason, thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, from the 2018 Agro Expo, I'm Janelle Brose. Here at the 3rd Annual Agro Expo, there were a number of educational sessions throughout the 2-day show, one of which was on soybean cyst nematode resistance. And here to talk about that with us today is Zuber, a field agronomist with Pioneer. Karen, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, soybean cyst nematode resistance is an ongoing issue, and it's a cause for concern. Tell us a little bit about what's been happening.
So as we look at soybean cyst nematode resistance, it's really about a selection of the population that's going on. So there are different types that occur in the soil and in that biology within the soil. And by selecting the same type of resistance within soybeans, you're kind of building up those other types or allowing those other types to survive. So we're starting to see that shift to those other types of soybean cyst nematodes, which can cause yield loss in the end.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the yield loss. How significant of an impact is it having on yields?
When you talk about yield loss with soybean cyst nematode, the environment is going to drive a lot of that. If we have a good environment, good moisture situation, good fertility, you're not going to see as much of an impact from soybean cyst nematode. So sometimes it seems like it's the silent yield robber that's out there. But really, if you get those types of situations where you have extreme drought, there can be a significant yield loss. Michigan State did a study a number of years ago looking at resistant and susceptible varieties. And in that, there was a yield difference between 13.5 bushel was the lowest and 75 was the highest. Now that's significant pressure, those were significant situations, but the main point is it can be a very significant yield loss, and I've seen in my years of observation as much as a 20 bushel yield loss in fields due to soybean cyst nematode resistance issues.
Let's talk about management strategies. How do you avoid running into those kind of severe losses?
So you talk about management strategies with soybean cyst nematode, it starts with rotation and making sure that we're rotating crops. That's number one. Reduce that opportunity for that insect to feed on those and take away the host. Secondly, you look at rotating your types of resistances. So we do have the PI 88788, which is very common in soybean varieties throughout the state. There's also the peaking source resistance that offers that alternate source resistance to combat those other populations of soybean cyst nematodes.
All right, Karen, thanks for joining us. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
From the 2018 Agro Expo, I'm Janelle Brose.
The Michigan Soybean Promotion Committee is devoted to investing soybean farmer checkoff dollars to address grower concerns. We focus our efforts on production research, market development, and outreach. Learn more at michigansoybean.org.
With the Market Report, I'm Chris Betz. Support this week came from reports that Chinese officials are set to travel to the U.S. later this month to reopen low-level trade talks. Beans predictably led gains Thursday following the news. Funds have an extended short position in soybeans, which will lend itself to quick rallies, such as Thursday's, on any sniff of improving trade relations. Corn benefited from spillover support from soybeans and wheat Thursday. Positive news for NAFTA will lend support, while bears will point towards burdensome U.S. stocks and 2018 production, as described in last Friday's WASDE. Wheat has suffered following the report, which painted a better picture for world production than was expected. Trade this week was largely in recovery mode from last Friday's drop-off, with support from a more active export wire. Corn and bean exports were also more active this week, positive given the surging U.S. dollar. For more market information, go to michag.com. With Michigan Agricultural Commodities, I'm Chris Betz.
Are you still waiting to be paid? Learn about your options on collecting money owed to you at fosterswift.com.
That's a wrap from the 2018 Agro Expo in St. Johns. For more news and video, visit MichiganFarmNews.com or the Michigan Farm Bureau channel on YouTube. With Farm News 5, I'm Janelle Brose. Have a great week of farming.